Hey everyone, my name is Robert. I'm 74 years old, and that is my Father's Day story. A Father's Day story of awakening. The cruelest gift. My name is Robert Mitchell. I'm 74 years old, and I'm about to tell you the story of the day I finally woke up. I stood in front of the mirror that Father's Day morning, adjusting my blue blazer for the third time. My hands weren't as steady as they once were, but I still took pride in my appearance. This blazer, my favorite, had been a gift from my late wife, Margaret, 20 years ago, just months before cancer took her from me. "Brings out your eyes," she used to say, touching my cheek with that soft smile I still dream about. I'd been looking forward to this day for weeks. I'd carefully selected gifts for everyone. A restored pocket watch for my son David, art supplies for my granddaughter Emma, who loved to paint, and a collection of classic adventure books for my grandson Jake. I'd also stopped by the bakery at dawn to pick up fresh donuts, the fancy kind with real maple glaze that the kids loved. The drive to David's house took 20 minutes through quiet Sunday morning streets. I hummed along to an old Frank Sinatra song on the radio, tapping my fingers on the steering wheel. I'd raised David in this same town, in a small house 3 blocks from the elementary school, working my fingers to the bone to make sure my son had every opportunity. As I pulled into the driveway of David's 2-story colonial, the one I'd helped fund, I noticed several cars already parked outside. My chest tightened slightly. I hadn't realized it would be such a big gathering. Grandpa Rob, 7-year-old Emma came flying out the front door, her blonde pigtails bouncing. 9-year-old Jake followed, both of them wrapping their arms around my waist the moment I stepped out of the car. "There's my favorite artists and adventurers," I laughed, hugging them tight. These moments, these pure, uncomplicated moments of love, were what I lived for now. David appeared at the door, dressed in an expensive polo shirt I didn't recognize. My son had put on weight in recent years, the stress of his corporate job showing in the lines around his eyes. "Hey Dad, come on in." The greeting felt perfunctory, mechanical. Emily, David's wife, stood in the kitchen arranging a fruit platter. She'd always been cordial to me, but never warm. Today her smile seemed particularly forced. "Hi, Robert. We're so glad you could make it." Could make it? As if I'd had other options. As if I hadn't cleared my entire day, my entire week, around this gathering. The living room was decorated with balloons and a banner that read, "Happy Father's Day." My heart lifted slightly at the sight. Maybe I'd been imagining the distance lately. Maybe things were fine. Several of Emily's family members were scattered around the room. Her parents, her sister, a couple of cousins. They nodded politely at me, but quickly returned to their conversations. I was, as always, on the periphery of my own son's life. "Dad, sit here," David said, gesturing to the center of the couch. "We have something special for you." Emma and Jake sat at my feet, looking up at me with excited faces. Whatever was about to happen, the children clearly thought it was a treat. David pulled a bright blue envelope from behind a cushion and handed it to me with an odd smile, something that didn't quite reach his eyes. "It's from all of us. Read it out loud so everyone can hear." My hands trembled slightly as I opened the envelope. Inside was a handmade card with colorful drawings on the front, stick figures that were presumably the family, a house, some flowers. Emma's work, I guessed. My heart swelled. I cleared my throat and began to read aloud. "Roses are red. Violets are blue. You're a heavy burden. No one wants you. Your time has passed. It's time to go. Signed, your family, who can't stand you anymore." The words hung in the air like poison. For 3 endless seconds, the room was completely silent. Then David burst out laughing, a loud, sharp bark that seemed to give everyone else permission. Emily covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. Her father chuckled. Even the kids started giggling because the adults were, though confusion flickered in their eyes. "Did you see his face?" David gasped, doubling over. "Emily, tell me you got that on video." "Dad, you should see yourself. You look like someone just ran over your dog." The card slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the carpet. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room spun slightly. Tears, hot, humiliating tears, began to well up in my eyes. At 74 years old, sitting in a room full of people, I felt something inside me crack clean through. "It's just a joke, Dad," David said, still chuckling. "God, you've always been so sensitive. Can't you take a joke?" But there was no warmth in his voice, no apology in his eyes. Emily stepped forward, her expression shifting to something like pity. "Maybe we should have prepared you. Look, Robert, we've been meaning to talk to you about something." "About what?" My voice came out hoarse. David exchanged a glance with Emily. "You've been around a lot lately. Every week, sometimes more. And we've been thinking, maybe it's time to consider other arrangements." "Other arrangements?" "A senior community," Emily said gently, as if she were explaining something to a child. "Somewhere you can be with people your own age. You'd have activities, social events, people to talk to. You'd probably be much more comfortable." Comfortable. That word. They didn't want me comfortable. They wanted me gone. Jake tugged on my sleeve. "Grandpa, why are you crying?" Before I could answer, before I could even process the question, David pulled his son away. "Come on, buddy. Grandpa's just being emotional. You know how old people get." I stood on shaking legs, my entire body feeling like it might collapse. "I should go. Probably for the best," David said, already turning away. "We'll call you sometime." "Not, we'll call you next week." "Not, let's have lunch Tuesday." "Sometime." I gathered my unopened gifts from where I'd set them by the door. No one asked what they were. No one said thank you. As I walked to my car, Emma called out from the doorway. "Bye, Grandpa. See you soon." But her mother was already pulling her back inside. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before I could trust myself to drive. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The tears came in waves, each one carrying years of suppressed hurt, dismissed feelings, and swallowed pride. When I finally pulled into my driveway, to the small, modest house I'd lived in for 45 years, the silence was deafening. I'd never felt more alone in my entire life. The man they forgot. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my recliner, the one I'd built with my own hands in 1985, working from a library book and scrap lumber, and let the memories wash over me. It was time to remember who I really was, who I'd been before I became just Dad and Grandpa. And can you watch the kids today? I was 30 years old when Margaret died. Cancer took her in 8 brutal months, leaving me with a 4-year-old son and a heart that felt like shattered glass. The day of her funeral, I held David's small hand and made a promise at her graveside. "I'll give him everything, Maggie. Everything you would have. I promise." And I did. God help me, I did. I took 2 jobs, mechanic at Bernie's auto shop during the day, janitor at the elementary school at night. I'd sleep 4, maybe 5 hours, then do it all again. My hands were permanently stained with grease and cleaning chemicals. I smelled like pine sol and motor oil, but David always had clean clothes, hot meals, and a birthday party every year with homemade cake. When David was 10, he wanted piano lessons. I worked overtime for 3 months to afford a used upright piano and weekly lessons with Mrs. Chun. I'd sit on the porch every Wednesday evening, listening to David practice scales through the open window, feeling pride swell in my chest despite my bone-deep exhaustion. When David was 14, he made the baseball team. I never missed a game, not one, even when I had to leave work early and lose wages. I taught him to throw a curveball in our backyard until the streetlights came on and the mosquitoes drove us inside. When David got accepted to State University, the tuition was more than I made in a year. I sold my vintage 1967 Triumph motorcycle, the one thing I'd kept from my youth, the one piece of myself I'd held on to through everything. "Dad, are you sure?" David had asked, eyes wide. "Your future is worth more than any motorcycle, son." For years of tuition, I paid every penny, working triple shifts during summers, eating ramen and day-old bread so David could have textbooks and a meal plan. When David graduated, top of his class in business, I sat in the audience with tears streaming down my face. This was it. This was what it had all been for. Then David met Emily. She came from money. Her father was a surgeon, her mother a real estate developer. Their engagement party was at a country club I'd only seen from the highway. I wore my blue blazer and felt distinctly out of place among the champagne and seafood towers. When they started planning the wedding, Emily's parents offered to pay for everything. David accepted. But then, quietly, he came to me. "Dad, I know they're handling most of it, but Emily wants this specific venue. It's another $10,000. I don't want to ask her parents for more. They're already doing so much." I'd been saving for a new roof. The old one leaked every time it rained. Instead, I wrote the check. David hugged me. "I'll pay you back, Dad. I promise." He never did. When David and Emily bought their first house, they were short on the down payment. I gave them $20,000, money I'd saved by working weekends at the auto shop after I'd officially retired. Money I'd thought would be my emergency fund. "This is just a loan, Dad," David assured me. "We'll pay you back once I get my promotion." The promotion came. The repayment didn't. Then the grandchildren were born. Emma first, then Jake 2 years later. I became the default babysitter while David and Emily both worked demanding jobs. Every morning at 6:30 a.m., I was at their house. I'd make breakfast, pack lunches, walk them to the bus stop, pick them up, help with homework, make dinner. "We couldn't do this without you, Dad," David said during those early years. "You're a lifesaver." I didn't mind. The kids were bright spots in my life. Emma with her creative spirit, Jake with his endless questions about how things worked. I taught them to fish, to build things with their hands, to appreciate old movies and classic books. But somewhere along the way, the gratitude faded. It happened gradually, like erosion. Little comments, small slights that individually seemed like nothing, but collectively formed a pattern. "Dad, you forgot to switch the laundry." Not, "Thanks for doing the laundry." "Did you give Jake the right medicine? Are you sure you read the label correctly?" As if I were incompetent. "Maybe you should write things down, Dad. You're getting forgetful." I wasn't forgetful. I was tired. I was 74 years old and taking care of 2 active children 5 days a week while my body ached and my joints protested. When David lost his job in the recession, I started sending $500 a month to help with bills. It was supposed to be temporary, just until David found new work. 6 months later, David got a better job with a bigger salary. The monthly transfers continued. No one mentioned stopping them. I figured they needed the cushion. A year passed, then 2, then 5. The money kept leaving my account like clockwork. When I gently asked if they still needed it, David said, "Things are tight, Dad. Kids are expensive. You know how it is." So I kept working. I took odd jobs fixing cars for neighbors, doing handyman work, stretching my pension and Social Security as far as they'd go. When they wanted to renovate the kitchen, $7,000 from me. When the kids needed laptops for school, $2,000. When their car needed major repairs, $3,000. When Emily wanted to take a much-needed vacation, I watched the kids for 10 days while they went to Hawaii. No payment, no thank you gift, just a postcard that said, Wish you were here, with a smiley face. I never asked for anything in return. I gave because that's what parents do. That's what love looks like, isn't it? But somewhere in the giving, I stopped being a person to them. I became a resource, a wallet with legs, a convenient solution to their problems. The worst part was realizing they'd started excluding me from the things that mattered. Jake mentioned David's birthday party one afternoon while I was helping him with math homework. "We're having a big party on Saturday," Jake said. "Mom ordered a huge cake, and there's going to be a magician." Oh, I didn't know about that. I brought it up casually when David picked up the kids that evening. "Oh, that," David said, not meeting my eyes. "It's just a small thing. We didn't want you to feel obligated to come. You're always doing so much for us." But I saw the photos on Emily's Facebook the next week. The house was packed with people, friends, co-workers, neighbors, Emily's entire extended family. A magician, a catered buffet, an elaborate dessert table. Everyone except me. Then I got the flu. A bad one. 102-degree fever, couldn't get out of bed, could barely make it to the bathroom. I called David. "Hey Dad, what's up?" I'm pretty sick. Fever and chills. I can't drive. I was wondering if you could." "Oh man, that's rough. But Dad, Emily's got back-to-back shifts this week, and I'm slammed at work. Can you ask someone else? Maybe one of your neighbors." Sorry Dad. I really gotta run. Feel better." The call ended. I lay in bed for 6 days. No one called to check on me. No one stopped by. It was Mr. Patel, my 81-year-old neighbor from 3 doors down, who eventually knocked on my door with a container of soup. "I notice your newspaper piling up," Mr. Patel said in his gentle accent. "You okay, my friend?" A stranger showed more kindness than my own son. That's when I first felt it. That cold, clarifying realization that I'd spent 50 years pouring myself out for someone who would never think to fill me back up. The man they never knew. Now, sitting in my dark living room the night after Father's Day, that realization crystallized into something sharp and clear. I had allowed this to happen. By giving without boundaries, I taught them I had no boundaries. By sacrificing without speaking up, I taught them my needs didn't matter. But there was something they didn't know. Something no one knew. I stood slowly and walked to my bedroom closet. I pulled down a metal lockbox from the top shelf, the one that had belonged to my Uncle James. James Mitchell had been a merchant marine with no wife and no children. When he died 15 years ago, he left me his entire estate, a beachfront condo in Belize and a modest investment portfolio. I'd never told David about any of it. At the time, David was doing well in his career, newly married, seemingly set. I didn't want money to change our relationship. I wanted David to succeed on his own merits, to appreciate what he'd built himself. So I quietly hired a property manager to rent out the condo. The income, about $3,000 a month, went straight into a separate account. I never touched it, just let it grow. Between the rental income and careful investing, that account now held over $400,000. I also had another $200,000 in retirement accounts I'd never mentioned, and the condo itself was worth at least $300,000. I wasn't poor. I'd never been poor. I'd just lived simply, modestly, channeling my resources toward my son's success while maintaining my humble lifestyle. They thought I was barely scraping by. They thought the monthly $500 was a sacrifice that hurt me. It wasn't. I could afford it easily. But that wasn't the point anymore. The point was that they'd taken and taken and taken, never once asking if I needed anything. Never wondering how I managed to always have money available. Never curious about my own life, my own needs, my own dreams. They saw me as old, forgetful, slightly pathetic, a burden. But I was sharper than they knew, more capable, more financially secure. And I was done. My final letter. I spent all of Monday making phone calls and arrangements. First, I called my bank and canceled the automatic monthly transfer to David's account. Then I closed the family emergency account I'd set up years ago, the one David had the routing number for, just in case. There was $12,000 in it. I transferred it to my private accounts. I called my lawyer and scheduled an appointment to revise my will. Everything would now go to two places: a trust fund for Emma and Jake that they could only access at age 25, and a substantial donation to the Veteran Support Network, a nonprofit helping abandoned and homeless veterans. David would get nothing. I called a realtor about listing my house. I didn't need much. I kept it mainly for the memories of Margaret, but maybe it was time to let those go too. Time to make new memories. Finally, I booked a first-class ticket to Belize. One way. On Tuesday morning, I sat at my small kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a blank sheet of paper. Outside, birds sang in the oak tree Margaret had planted when we first bought the house. The morning light filtered through the lace curtains, also Margaret's choice. "Guide my hand, Maggie," I whispered and began to write. "Dear David, by the time you read this letter, I'll be on a plane to Belize. You didn't know I owned property there. There are many things you don't know about me anymore, perhaps things you never really knew at all. I've decided to stop all financial support, effective immediately. The monthly transfers are canceled. The emergency account is closed. The offers to help out will no longer be coming. This isn't revenge. I want you to understand that. This is self-preservation. For 50 years, I have given you everything I had. I sold my motorcycle for your education. I worked until my hands bled to give you opportunities one never had. I gave you money for your wedding, your house, your renovations, your vacations, your children's needs. I gave you my time, my energy, my body when it was convenient for you. I showed up at 6:30 every morning to raise your children while you built your career, the same career you built on the foundation I provided. I never asked for repayment. I never demanded gratitude. Love shouldn't come with a price tag. But love does require respect. And respect requires recognizing the humanity of the person giving to you. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being your father and became your bank account, your babysitter, your problem solver, an obligation you resented even as you benefited from. That Father's Day card was cruel, but it was also clarifying. You think of me as a burden. You said I'm always around, as if my presence in my own son's life is an intrusion. You suggested a senior community, not out of concern for my well-being, but because you want me out of the way. So I'm granting your wish. I'm leaving. Not to a senior community where you can visit when guilt moves you, but to a life of my own choosing. I'm going to spend my remaining years, and I'm healthy enough that there may be quite a few of them, doing things I've never done, seeing places I've only read about, living for myself for the first time since I was 30 years old. I've changed my will. Everything I've built, and there's more than you imagine, will go to organizations that help people who've been abandoned by their families. The irony there is not lost on me. Your children, Emma and Jake, will each receive a trust fund they can access at 25, with one condition. They must maintain a relationship with me separate from you and Emily. They must write to me, call me, visit me on their own volition. If they do that, they'll each receive $100,000 to start their adult lives. If they don't, if you poison them against me or simply allow our relationship to fade, they'll receive nothing. The money will go to charity instead. I'm doing this because Emma and Jake are good kids. They love openly and honestly in a way you've forgotten how to. They deserve to understand that relationships matter more than money, and that love requires actual effort. As for you, David, my son, I need you to know that I still love you. That part will probably never change, no matter how much you hurt me. But I'm done allowing your indifference to erase my worth. Love without respect isn't really love at all. It's just dependency with sentiment attached. You can call this selfish if you want. You can tell people I abandoned you. But we both know the truth. You abandoned me first. You just did it while I was still standing right in front of you. I hope you build a good life for your children. I hope you teach them to value the people who love them before those people are gone. I hope you learn, before it's too late, that no amount of money can buy back the time you waste. I'll be in Belize. The property manager has my contact information if there's a genuine emergency. But otherwise, I need space. I need silence. I need the sound of waves instead of criticism. The warmth of sun instead of cold indifference. I need to remember what it feels like to matter. Maybe someday, when you've done some growing, we can talk again. Maybe you'll understand. Maybe you'll even apologize. But I won't be holding my breath. Take care of my grandchildren. Despite everything, they're the best thing you ever made. Dad. I read the letter 3 times, tears dropping onto the paper and smudging the ink slightly. But I didn't rewrite it. The imperfection felt honest. I sealed it in an envelope, addressed it carefully, and left it on David's front porch at 5 a.m. Wednesday morning, before anyone was awake. Then I drove home, loaded 2 suitcases into my car, and headed to the airport. What I left behind. I don't know exactly what happened when David found my letter. I wasn't there to see it, and frankly, I didn't want to be. But I can imagine. I imagine him opening it casually, maybe expecting an apology. I imagine the color draining from his face as he read. I imagine Emily reading over his shoulder, both of them realizing that the father they'd dismissed as helpless and dependent was neither of those things. I imagine David trying to call me, my phone going straight to voicemail. I'd blocked them all, David, Emily, even their home number. I imagine him driving to my house, finding it empty, the for sale sign already planted in the front yard. I imagine him asking Mr. Patel where I'd gone, and Mr. Patel, bless that man, giving him very little information. Just, your father left. He had suitcases. He looked free. What I do know, because Mr. Patel emailed me a week later, is that David sat in his car in my driveway for over an hour that first day. Just sat there, staring at the empty house. Mr. Patel wrote, "Your son, he looks broken, but maybe broken is what he needs to be before he can rebuild himself correctly. You are a good man, Robert. You deserve peace." That email made me cry on my balcony in Belize, watching the sunset turn the ocean into liquid gold. My new life. Let me tell you about Belize. The condo my uncle left me sits right on the beach in Placencia. It's small, just 2 bedrooms, but it has a wraparound balcony that faces the Caribbean Sea. Every morning, I wake up to the sound of waves and seabirds. I've made friends here, real friends, not just people who need something from me. There's Maria, who runs the cafe down the beach. She makes the best fried jacks I've ever tasted, and she taught me some Spanish. We play cards every Thursday evening with a rotating group of locals and expats. There's Timothy, a retired teacher from Canada who lives 3 condos down. We go fishing twice a week, and he actually listens when I talk. We trade stories about our lives, our regrets, our dreams. When I told him about David and the Father's Day card, he just shook his head and said, "Some people don't wake up until they lose everything. That's not your fault." There's even a woman. Her name is Claire. She's 68, a widow from California. We've had coffee a few times. She makes me laugh. I'd forgotten what that felt like, to laugh with someone who genuinely enjoyed my company. I spend my days reading books I never had time for. I learned to paddleboard. I volunteer at a local school, helping kids learn to read English. I fix things around the community, gates, screens, broken fans, because I'm good with my hands and it feels good to be useful on my own terms, not because someone expects it. I'm living, truly living, for for the first time in decades. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about David, about Emma and Jake. Every single day, I think about them. The letters begin. 3 weeks after I arrived in Belize, the first letter came. The property manager forwarded it to me. David's handwriting on the envelope, my name written in what looked like a shaky hand. I stared at it for a long time before I opened it. Dear Dad, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't even know if you should. But I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. Not just for the card. Not just for suggesting you were a burden. But for everything. For years of taking you for granted. For mistaking your love for obligation. For never once asking if you needed anything. For laughing when I should have been listening. I found your notebook. Life lessons for David. Page after page of wisdom you were waiting to share with me, and I never asked to hear any of it. I was so focused on building my own life that I forgot you had one too. I can't undo what I've done. I can't give you back the years I wasted. But I can change. I'm trying to change. Emma asks about you every day. Jake pretends he's fine, but I found him sleeping with the fishing rod you gave him. They miss you. I miss you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know. I finally see it. I finally understand. I love you, Dad. I should have said it more. David. I read that letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to respond. Maybe I'd never be ready. But I kept it. More letters came. One every 2 weeks, like clockwork. Some were from David, chronicling the changes he was making. He'd started volunteering at the Veterans Support Network I'd donated to. He brought the kids with him. He wrote about the veterans he met there, about their stories of abandonment and betrayal, and how he saw himself in the families who'd left them behind. Some letters were from Emma and Jake, childish scrawls on notebook paper, full of "I miss you, Grandpa," and drawings of fish and beaches. Those were the hardest to read. I kept every single one, but I didn't respond. Not yet. My reckoning. 6 months into my new life, I had a health scare. Nothing major. Chest pains that turned out to be severe indigestion, but it landed me in a Belizean hospital for 2 days while they ran tests. Lying in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, I had to confront something I'd been avoiding. I was angry. Deeply, profoundly angry. And beneath that anger was something even harder to admit. I was lonely. I had friends here. I had purpose. I had peace. But I also had 2 grandchildren growing up without me, learning about the world without my stories and guidance. I had a son who was, according to his letters, genuinely trying to change. Claire visited me in the hospital, bringing flowers and fruit. You gave them your whole life, she said, sitting beside my bed. Now you're giving them your absence. Both are forms of love, but only you can decide which one serves you better. That night, I pulled out all of David's letters and read them chronologically. I saw the progression, from desperate apologies to genuine reflection to concrete actions. He wasn't just saying sorry. He was becoming different. Was it enough? I didn't know. But maybe that wasn't the right question. Maybe the right question was, did I want to spend my remaining years building bridges or maintaining walls? The first phone call. I called David on a Tuesday evening. Belize time, it was 7 p.m. Back home, it would be 9. The phone rang 3 times. My hand was shaking. Hello. David's voice sounded uncertain, probably not recognizing the international number. David, it's me. It's Dad. Silence. Then a sound I'd never heard from my son before. A sob, quickly muffled. Dad. Oh my God. Dad, I'm not calling to argue, I said quickly. I'm not calling to rehash anything. I read your letters. All of them. You did. Every single one. Even the ones from the kids that nearly broke my heart. Dad, I'm so sorry. I know I keep saying it, but David, stop. I need to say something, and I need you to just listen. He went quiet. I took a deep breath. I spent 50 years thinking that love meant sacrifice, that being a good father meant giving everything until there was nothing left. And in some ways, I was right. You turned out successful. You have a good career, a nice house, beautiful children. By most measures, I succeeded. But Dad, let me finish. I succeeded at raising you to be independent. But I failed at teaching you something crucial. That love is a two-way street. That relationships require maintenance from both sides. I failed because I never asked for anything. I never set boundaries. I taught you, through my actions, that my needs didn't matter. I heard him crying softly on the other end. That Father's Day card. I continued. It was cruel, but it was also honest. That's how you saw me. And I had helped create that perception by never standing up for myself. I was so wrong, Dad. So horribly wrong. You were. But I'm calling because I'm ready to try something different. Not going back to how things were. That version of us is gone forever. But maybe building something new. Something more balanced. Anything, David said. Anything you want. I want you to keep volunteering at the Veterans Center. I want you to teach Emma and Jake about service, about gratitude, about respecting the people who love them. I want you to become the father they deserve, not the one I enabled you to be. I will. I am. I promise. And I want to talk to my grandkids. On video calls. Once a week. Without you hovering. Just me and them. Of course. Yes. Absolutely. And David, I'm not coming back. Not to live. This is my home now. But maybe you could visit. Maybe next year. When I'm ready. We'll come whenever you want us. I'll buy the tickets today if you want. Not yet. I'm still healing. But someday. We talked for another hour. It wasn't all easy. There were hard truths, moments of pain, old wounds that still ached. But there was also something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. When we finally hung up, I walked out onto my balcony. The moon was full, casting silver light across the water. I could hear music drifting from Maria's cafe down the beach, laughter and conversation mixing with the sound of waves. For the first time since Margaret died, I felt whole. Not because David had apologized, not because my family. As long as I could remember, my heart felt light with possibility. And now thank you all for being listening to my story. Your attention means a great deal to me, and I truly appreciate the support. I hope my story resonates with you and inspires connection among us all.